me open with a question. Show of hands, and I'll even take a look over here and see people on the gallery. Raise your hands if you agree with the statement. Every person can learn to be competent in almost anything. Who agrees? Online? You sure we gallery view? So
Oh, yep. Sorry.
okay, maybe a third, maybe almost half. Second question. Raise your hands if you agree. Each person's greatest room for growth is in his or her areas of greatest weakness. They got more. For those of you who agree with those two statements, you are agreeing with the standard, typical management philosophy that underpins how management is done, especially in the United States, and I think Europe. The problem is that the Gallup organization found both of those statements have flaws. They focus on weakness. Now, it's great if one can arrange an abscission of all your weaknesses. That's marvelous. But you want to concentrate also on your strengths, which requires knowing what your strengths are. That's what we'll talk about today. So instead of the plug-and-play business, and I know at the Idaho National Laboratory, management typically have the idea that that person can manage anything. That person can manage everything. That person can manage everything. Wrong, but they didn't. So I'm trying to make you ponder your strengths, and as you discover your strengths, figure out how to use them. What's a strength? Here's an example. Henri Matisse, famous French painter. At age 21, he was a lawyer's clerk. He was sick, depressed, in bed with the flu. Standard thing to do would be to, help him get well, deal with the weakness. His mother instead gave him a box of paints. Quote, he felt a surge of energy as though released from a dark prison and seeing the light for the first time. End quote. 4 years later, with no schooling, he was accepted at the top art school in Paris and went on to become a world famous painter. He had an inner drive, an inner talent, innate ability. And given the chance, he soared. That's what strengths are all about. Finding those opportunities for you to soar. So the books, here's your old book, new book, with one little caveat, you're welcome to borrow it. So they define strengths as something positive you do reliably, consistently. If you put effort into it, automatically. Start with the talent, the innate, naturally occurring patterns of thought, feeling, or behavior. Skill, learn the steps of the activity, painting, for example. And then knowledge, facts and lessons learned. In Toastmasters, maybe some people really have stage presence. That's hard to teach. But you can have the skill, learn the skills, using the podium and your voices and the body language and all those sorts of things. And then the knowledge of procedures and how to be in contests and whatnot. So let me give an example of one of the strengths is 34. When you buy the book, you get a code, go online and do a survey. You'll get back a list of your 5 strongest themes. One of mine is ideation, defined as people who are especially talented by ideas, fascinated by ideas. They are able to find connections between seemingly disparate phenomena. For example, you recognize when you are especially creative. Chances are good that you may be delighted when you can generate new and innovative ideas for doing certain tasks or projects. Perhaps you lose enthusiasm or become bored when you are forced to follow standard operating procedures. It's me. Periodically, you wonder if you are in the right job or course of study if your creativity is stifled. Maybe you're frustrated by people who conclude that your innovative suggestions are forms of criticisms or insubordination. Man, did I get that from I&L management more than once. You're fascinated by ideas. So I handed out by email and I printed for those people here copies, just a list of the 34 themes of innate abilities, belief, people who have core values that are unchanging. Out of those values emerges the defined purpose of their life. I'll pick another one at random. Empathy. People strong in the empathy thing can sense the feelings of other people by imagining themselves in others' lives or others' situations. I don't have that in me. I have to work at it. I have to strive to do that. So it's hit or miss with me. But when it comes to ideation or learning, people learn strong in the learner thing, have a great desire to learn and want to be continuously improved. That's me. That's why I'm still in touch with. It's part of why I'm still in particular, the process of learning rather than the outcome excites such people. So there's all these different things. The idea is to find out. See, I'm using the word idea because that's something I'm fascinated. Principle is to find out what are your strengths. Your strengths might not be the same as Jesse's or mine or theirs. I know that Nancy and Susan have gone through this before. Find out what those are. And then you develop the skills that go with those innate abilities. You gain the knowledge to use that innate ability. So why the emphasis on strengths rather than weakness? You need competitive edge. Henri Matisse would be a really good example. To excel versus the just plug and play. Do whatever you want. It allows you to accentuate the positive. Because when you use your strengths, your innate abilities, it makes you happy. Who else be happy? It's Mick didn't raise his hand. What do you yearn to do? In what areas do you really learn quickly? What gives you satisfaction? Those are clues as to what your strengths are. Now, in a brief discussion with Susan about this yesterday, she gave me some information I didn't know about. And said, one of the things you do have to learn is how to apply your skills or innate abilities correctly and judiciously. Otherwise, you can appear to people as overdoing it. Empathy, for example. If you take empathy too far or in the wrong place, you can come across as a bleeding heart. Learn. Maybe I don't prioritize what I'm learning. That is something I'm at risk of. So we all have these strengths. And the sad thing is sometimes people aren't concentrated on the strengths. They're so focused on, I got to lose 10 pounds, or I got to lose 50 pounds, or I didn't do that test right, and I don't know how to spell. Great. Deal with the weaknesses when you can. Deal with the obsession of weaknesses when you can. What makes you soar? What defines you? What raises you up? Find out what those are. The book can help. It explains what these concepts are. And again, the online survey will come back. Here's the two that I did years ago and then a couple of months ago. By the way, one of the reasons I did it again, I was fascinated with the idea of how consistent this was. What's the program change? Well, when I did it years ago, I came out as learner, strategic, ideation. Those three were repeated this year, almost 20 years later. Analytical and focus changed to input and intellection. So, but all these are in the area of strategic thinking. So they group the different innate abilities into domains or think types. Maximizers, developers, empathy, positivity, relator. These are other things I have to work at. So where do you have to work? Where do you have innate ability? And before I go any further, what time do we have, Sharon?
10:45.
10:45. Let's have a question.
You actually answered my question when you said that you had taken the test a second time. Were you surprised that it was the same? Because over 10 years, I feel like a lot of us think, oh, I've changed so much. But
I wondered if some of the emotional things had crept up. But I'm a lifelong learner. If that had not showed up again, I would have tossed the book and said, wrong, failed. I'm a lifelong learner. The people who know me the best, I'm always reading. Over the last 7 years, I have averaged 66 books a year. When I travel somewhere, I study up on the history and the culture and the cuisine, and music. I can't stop learning. It's so innate with me. So some of these things I know myself well enough to know. And if strategic, fascination with ideas, if those didn't come up again, something's wrong. I have one more question. Yes.
I'm going to segue off of hers. What is your favorite subject you've ever learned about?
You ask me that on 5 different days, I'll probably give you 5 different days. Math.
oh,
When I went through school, I'm sure some of my classmates hated me. I didn't have to study it. I just soaked it up. I get presented with an idea, mathematical concept. Went to math camp after junior and senior year of high school. It just makes sense. And it informs physics. And I enjoy physics. I went into nuclear engineering. So math is one of it's beautiful. But so is the periodic table. And so is music. Music is, of course, all math. So all of these things, my brain's wired that. Other people are wired differently. But that is what it is. Really. I don't see yelling at us. One more question. Captain.
So in Strength Finders, you're supposed to lean into your top strengths, which I think are 5. Is there a strength that you lean into? I'm sorry, that you struggle to lean into? It sounds like learning is your top and you lean well into that one. Is there a strength that you find hard to lean into?
Focus. And it's because the 5 strengths that they list, they may or may not be related to each other. But sometimes it causes, if you will, a bit of a conflict. Focus, I have trouble focusing. I want to learn everything. I want to experience everything. Well, that's kind of opposed to, in some sense, focus, where you say, that's my priority. I'm going to go for that. So I have that tension of, gee, I want to do this. I want to read all these things. I have a to read list that is over 100 books long. Even though I read, 66 books a year, the to read list gets even longer year to year. So I have a problem with focus. I have that ability, I have that innate thing, but it's a conflict with some of my other strengths. So as you go forward, what do you enjoy in life? What are your innate abilities? Painting in the case of Matisse, ideation as in the case of Albert Einstein. If you look at what Einstein did when he was a postal clerk in Bern, Switzerland, I saw where his apartment was 2 weeks ago. He was stuck with the idea with regard to relativity. And it drove him from being a postal clerk to being probably the greatest genius in physics in the 20th century. Because he took that talent, that innate drive of ideation, and ran with it. And that rewrote the world's understanding of physics. So what are your strengths? And what are you going to do to develop them, to use them? That's my challenge to you. Manifest it.